Dana, do we have Bob and Joanne on?
I'll tell you. 1 second. Bob and Joanne, are you on?
Ryan, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on.
Do me a favor, text Joanne, please.
Yep.
If you have Bob's cell phone number, unless Joe, do you have Bob's number?
I don't know.
Joe Barto.
Twelve o'clock, so let's get started. Welcome everybody to the April all flag call. We have a really great month. We got a great little company or a great company that we're going to be testimonializing today. For all of you that this is your first time on the all flag call, the design of this call was to once a month take an hour to just as a listen only. So anybody that's in the program today, we have 452 employers in the program across the country. We've added 47 employees going into next year. We have added several new national facilitators. So the program is really starting to grow organically as we enter the 5th year of the program in July of 2025. So going to do a quick update. And then today we're really happy to have Hutchinson Inc. from Hopkins, Mass. is going to be our testimonial interview. Again, we intend this to be a listen only situational awareness piece. But if you do have questions or good ideas, feedback, just email them to me or Dana. You can put them in the text box and we'll get back to you or provide you the information that you may need.
Hey, Joe, take a quick break and I'm going to mute everybody and unmute yourself.
Okay.
Okay, Joe, unmute yourself, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Nice. Well, what I wanted to do is, and that we talked about this last month, was in the first week of April, we conducted our annual symposium, and it was a 4-day off-site strategy, training, education, update for the entire talent pipeline program. We realized last year when we did our after action review that as we continue to expand and we continue to roll out the national rollout of the program, we need to be drinking our own Kool-Aid. And so once a year, we're going to bring everybody together. And that was all the network coaches. So there were about 60 people that included our best practice model companies, some of our national facilitators, the Navy, came to Norfolk. And we sat down and we went through 3 days of training, networking, team building. And then on the last day, which was on the 3rd of April, we were joined by Mr. Matt Sermon, who's the direct reporting program manager for the MIB. And he then approved our 5-year plan. I mean, the 5-year plan from 25 to 30, that includes our execution years, 25, 27, and the POM years, which are 27 to 30. So I want to just kind of review that with everybody, just to kind of give you a feel for kind of where we're going. So as you look at our goals and plans over the next 5 years, we're going to grow organically, and that means in each of the current regional flags, we're going to grow by one network per year. That's 15 or 20 employers. Starting in 2026, we're going to be adding one new regional flag per year. And to plant the flag in 26, we're going to make a recommendation to the Navy in August of 25 after we finish the 24-25 annual report. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. And then we're going to continue the national rollout by expanding the enterprise flag. And we're going to separate the enterprise flag from the frontier flag so that we can have a really data-rich and recommendation for the next regional flag based upon primarily employer demand. So our goal is in April of 2026, when we do the demand signal roundtable, which is the opening event for every new regional flag, that we're going to have a minimum of 30 employers already in the program as of the demand signal roundtable date in April. So with that as kind of our expansion strategy, this is what it looks like through 2030. As we add the regional flag, again, one network per regional flag, then one regional flag per year, starting in 26. So as you can see, we have really been able to grow the program in a very controlled way to make sure that we are continuing to retain the culture of the talent pipeline program, which is primarily bringing companies who want help, giving them help, and then in exchange for that help, networking with other companies, and then providing the data to show that we're actually making a difference. Also, we're going to be adding 2 new tools or piloting 2 new tools in 25-26. We discovered in our after action review and our analysis of the previous years is as we add companies that have now been, so we have companies in Philadelphia that are now entering the 5th year of their experience of the talent pipeline program. So what we've discovered is that many of those companies, in fact, have been able to stabilize their workforce by building reliable year-over-year talent acquisition and retention pipelines to make sure that they are stabilizing their teams, they're growing themselves productively on the people side of the equation. What we now need to do is start being able to provide a tool to help those companies, now that they've stabilized their teams, to work on the first 4 metrics, which is cost, schedule, quality, safety. Are they able to deliver more productivity, more product to the Navy or to the customer now that they've stabilized their workforce? All of you know we have one of our current tools is the 5th metric scorecard, which is people. As you know, we teach that if we get the people right, all these other metrics get better. But now, how do we help companies look at their manufacturing processes and then develop a performance improvement plan? The second tool we're going to be piloting is what we think is a need across many small and medium-sized employers, is once they've stabilized their teams, they're improving their business, how do they sell their excess capacity to the Navy or the Defense Industrial Base? We continuously have people who say, I've got more capacity, but I don't know how to make the Navy aware of that so they can leverage my excess capacity to meet their demands. We all know that in order to do that, that's a relationship between the buyer and the seller. And if we can provide a bench of subject matter experts from our current employers that have really developed a business development capability in their companies, we think that would be a tool that would be significantly utilized in order to increase the overall performance of the companies and go to our final metric, which is provide more capacity to the Navy. So those are the two that have been approved. We're gonna be picking companies to do a pilot for both those tools in 25, 26. So if you're interested in that, or you're interested in learning more about it, please let us know. And then obviously the selection. So here's kind of our heat map today. So right now, if we had to select a new regional flag, it would be in 3 candidate regions: Chicago, the Fox Valley from Chicago basically to Milwaukee, Cincinnati, which is in the southern Ohio, northern Kentucky region, and then Detroit seem to be the 3 places where we have the most employer demand if we had to guess it today. So as we continue down this path, we first of all, if anybody has an idea of where else in the nation, because obviously the defense industrial base is all over the country, that you would think has enough of a demand that we should include them in the analysis, please let us know. Obviously, the number one criteria is the number of employers in the small and medium-sized category. But there are also some other criteria that we may want to consider, and we're working through that now. Finally, from just a program overview perspective, again, one of our things we take a lot of pride in is last summer we published the major milestone schedule. And we've hit every major milestone through the mid-year events and the national symposium. So now we're getting ready over the next 2 months, May and June, to go through the signing days. So everybody at this point should have submitted their testimonials to their network coaches, because we're doing another yearbook. I'd like you to really be looking at your annual data and do a little QA check, because that data is going to be benchmarked on the 30th of June. And that's the data that we're going to be analyzing for the annual report that we'll publish in August. So Bob and Joanne, are you on now?
They are on. You'll need to unmute Bob and Joanne.
I just unmuted, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for a little bit of late arrival.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry, yes, I unmuted as well. Hello, everyone.
So with that as kind of an introduction, I'd like to introduce my my now good friends Bob and Joanne. Bob and Joanne came to us or recommended to us early on in our experience up in Boston. And one of my first trips, so this was when was that, Bob? Probably spring of 23.
Yep, I think you're right on that one.
Yeah. So we did the demand signal in April of that year. Prior to that, showed up in Bob's at the plant there in Hopkinton. And so we went upstairs to Bob's office, and Bob, Joanne, I think Bo Brewer was with me, maybe one other. Bob said, before we start talking about the talent pipeline program, I need to explain to you what our strategy is. And what our strategy is, so that you and I are aligned that we see the pipeline program as a part of our overall strategy to grow Hutchinson, not only within the Navy marketplace, but in their own marketplace and other markets. And I'll tell you that it was the most amazing 10 minutes of strategic thinking. And we believe that one of the characteristics of high performance teams is the ability to think strategically. And that means not in the day-to-day execution, which seems to suck a lot of our efforts into the daily running of our business, cost, schedule, quality, getting the product out the door, managing the people, but truly having a long-term view of where we're going as a company. And so these things we just talked about, the enterprise value stream mapping, how do we improve our cost, schedule, quality, performance? How do we grow new marketplaces? It was really a lesson, and it taught me a lot that no matter what size company you are, all of us can think strategically. And certainly, as you've seen in the talent pipeline program, we learn a lot from the companies we work with. And I think Hutchinson is one of those. So with that as kind of an introduction, Bob, would you kind of give us an overview of your business and then maybe a synthesized update on your overall strategy as we start the conversation?
Sure, Joe. Thank you. And those were some very nice things to say about our company and the organization. Thank you for that also. Hutchinson is a company that was started by the co-patent owner of vulcanization of rubber, Goodyear and Hutchinson. Hutchinson went to Europe and started a company in France, and Goodyear stayed in the U.S. Today, Hutchinson is a very large materials organization, about $5 billion in sales, supplying, in my case, North America. We supply industry and defense and aerospace with shock and vibration solutions. So we're bonding elastomers to materials that elastomers don't like to stick to. And those products end up in everything from missile guidance systems to railroad airbags, is the nature of our business. I've been here 9 years, and when I got here, part of my interview process, the gentleman who hired me had been here for almost 30 years and been unsuccessful, and insisted that I find a way to get us into not the Navy, because Hutchinson, where I'm at here in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, started as a company called Berry Controls. And Berry Controls' first product was a mount that was developed by an MIT academic for isolating radar on Navy ship decks. So without that invention of isolation, radar would have never functioned on a Navy surface ship deck. So we have a long history in the Navy on top of the water, but never under the water. And we put together a strategy over the 9 years, and we've gone from someone who the submarine world doesn't think of to we are now the company that when the Navy has issues with shock vibration or any kind of acoustics, we get a call. We have expanded our facility. Our first expansion was about 5,000 square feet. We're in the middle of expanding another 6,000 square feet. And I'm supposedly about 3 weeks away from our organization having the security clearance to produce the next generation of classified and secret submarine components. We are in conversations with all the big people, Huntington Ingalls, Electric Boat, NAVSEA, all the right people. So our strategy, back to your original question, Joe, first and foremost, we met up with Joe, as he said, and we have a very strong belief culturally that a company grows only when the people inside that company are growing. So we really bought into the notion of we want to grow as a business, but we can't do that without growing our people. And for us, that's where TMG had an immediate connection to what we're trying to do. Joe, anything else you want me to say about that strategy?
Could you kind of give an overview, Bob, of your next 3-year plans of how you
Yep,
intend to grow your business? And then also just a quick snapshot of the total number of people you have today, kind of your revenue flows, et cetera.
sure. So we do our strategic planning by looking at what we call the forces that are acting on our business. These are the forces that we don't control. It's the economics, the technology, all of the politics, what have you. And we are, in the next 3 years, we certainly are planning to expand our business with the Navy, particularly in submarine. By 2030, our projection and our business model is based on about a doubling of our business with the submarines. That's why the new expansion is under construction now. We had been, when I started here, about a $70 million company. Again, part of the $5 billion Hutchinson globally. We're now at 110 million, 9 years later, and by 2030, our plan would have us just under 200 million in sales. We have good growth on the defense side, both on the Navy and non-Navy. We're very strong, as I said, in missiles, guidance systems, transport carriers, things like that. And we have about 40% of our sales in non-defense, which we are now getting our strategies together to grow that at the same rate that we have defense growing.
About how many people do you have and how are you structured?
Yep. So Joanne, you can probably answer that as well or better than I can.
Sure. So we have about 380 people, around 100 in Ithaca, Michigan, and the rest here. So around 280 here. And we're structured internally by value streams. We call them APUs, Autonomous Production Units. So internally, we have different manufacturing areas for different product lines going through those.
Joanne, how many people were you at in 2023 when we first started?
Oh, geez. I don't know, but I think our demand was like we needed 70 people yesterday. It was crazy. It was really a lot of people. And unfortunately, my computer just went down and I knew you were going to ask me that question. So maybe if it comes up before we leave, I'll let you know.
Oh, no. And so what was your compelling argument besides the strategic piece that said we need to be involved in the talent pipeline program back in 2023? Why? What was your why to do this?
I'll and then Joanne, please add, but we were facing two big problems on the people side, and we knew it. One of them, most manufacturers at that time were struggling. We were having a very hard time recruiting and retaining people to meet the growth of the business. And because of the attrition and all the things that were going on during that time, we had seen a lot of exit. And so our management team was very young, inexperienced, and we saw opportunities with the tools from TMG to address both of those challenges.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the one thing that we looked at TMG to do, which you did very well, was to help us so we could retain the people, because our leadership team, a lot of them were newly promoted into those roles, and we needed a lot of training for them. So we knew we could keep recruiting, but what's the good of having a churn if we can't keep them? And you helped us a lot with that.
Yeah, that was fundamental when we went through the toolbox that TMG offered. We took as a first priority the management training, because to Joanne's point, bringing a bunch of people in, getting better at recruiting, only to have them to leave for what at that time, and I think is still the case, the number one people leave an organization is because of their manager. So we took advantage and have seen the benefits of the TMG manager training and some excellent coaching. I keep wanting to reinforce, even for Joe to hear, the coaches were outstanding. They developed a rapport with our managers very quickly. and they became people that our young managers listened to and followed up with.
So, Joanne, maybe for you, what do you think the first line supervisors were back in 2023? And how many people, well, just as a guess, were you hiring every month versus your attrition rates?
So we were we were churning, I would say. We were bringing a lot of people in. We were using pipelines that we probably shouldn't have been using. We were bringing a lot of temporary help in. So we opened up different pipelines with the help of TMG and the New England Talent Pipeline, hooking us up to different areas. Our leadership team, I don't think was that involved. It was just get me somebody today because it was an urgent need. And I think they became more involved, understanding how important it was to hire for fit. If you heard that, I'm sure everybody on this call has heard that. Hire for fit and train for skill. So you helped us teach them how to do that. So that was good.
So the first tool you picked was on the retention side, which was the leader new hire retention training and the implementation of the fifth metric scorecard.
Yes.
Could you kind of talk through, the cultural shift that was required? I'm sure, always not everybody just kind of, raised their hands and went hallelujah.
Yeah, they definitely didn't embrace it. It was, what do you want us to do now? But the more they got used to using the tool and evaluating the people, at first, no one wanted to share their information, even amongst other team members under the same function. So even on the operations team, they didn't really want to talk about this person's engaged or disengaged. What does that really mean? We've grown from being able to share among their own function readily and easily. A lot of times in the beginning, it was a lot of coach from Joe, from Ryan, from Bo, other people here, helping them work through that. After we got them comfortable with the tool, they started to understand what those different terms really meant. And they felt more comfortable sharing the information. To where we are now, we share with the whole organization. So we have all of operations sharing, all of engineering sharing from the different functions all the way up. But it took time. It took time for trust, for understanding, and to know that we could all help each other through this.
So just kind of walk me through that. The first couple, I know that when we're coaching you, it's kind of one leader at a time, just getting comfortable with the tool. When did you get enough confidence that you now are bringing all the leaders in at one time? And can you describe, kind of the anxiety that was going on during the first couple of those and how you were able to overcome that?
Yeah, in the beginning, nobody wanted to put anybody as disengaged. That sounds like a bad word until we really kind of walk through what does that really mean. It would be a lot of one-on-ones in the beginning. There was a lot of separate coaching. We would bring them in with TMG's help one at a time, and we'd sit down together and go through their scorecard. I would say we did that for the first few months. And then finally, we were bringing them together as a team in the operations group, and they would be able to share with one another, with the production manager and the plant manager.
Hey, Joanne.
Yeah.
I had, one of the other interesting that will sound familiar as I've listened to a few of these other podcast things. Our group also went through the phase of not just what Joanne's already said, the negative connotation of the word disengaged. They went through the phase of my best people are going to get stolen, right? So I don't want to talk about my best people. Someone's going to take them. We had both of that going on, and I think some of you prior have reported some of the same evolution.
I think the most telling piece is when we finally got the engineers involved, because before they were all separate. I would say we were kind of siloed in those different functions, from quality to design to manufacturing. But when they all got to talk together and share information, they realized the talent we have here and how they could help each other. Because really what they want to do is grow in their careers and grow within the company. So they were very open to breaking down those walls and helping each other with it.
I agree with Joanne. We're a company very technical. So in the hierarchy, spoken or unspoken, of who's who, engineers have their own hierarchy all the way up to the design engineers. So getting the design engineers to accept and be part of the larger community as compared to now we're kind of outside of that group of normal people, I'll say, was a big deal.
So on that, continuing that flow, can you tell a story about maybe one or two of your first line supervisors or even managers that were hesitant to implement the tool, but today are a different leader because of this ability to have a discussion about their people in a non-pejorative setting?
Joanne, you want to do that?
Sure. So I would say probably the area that I think of a lot is in operations. They have their own production units. They need to make sure their production units run and they work as well as they can and produce the well as they can. And realizing that they could talk about a certain person and find out, well, maybe it's okay if this person doesn't work out here. Maybe this person is a better fit in a different piece of the company. And they started sharing those people. I think it brought a lot of growth within that team. They realized that it isn't just my group that has to succeed, but if this person doesn't work here, but he may be a better fit over here, they were doing that on their own and open to sharing that, which I never saw before. Before it was very much, I need to succeed here and, my production is more important than yours. But really now they're working together more as a team like that.
Yeah.
Does there any one individual pop in your mind that kind of the example?
I would say there was always one individual that when Joey was here, we knew that person would be coming. I don't want to name names, but we knew when the fifth metric scorecard reading was happening, there was a lot of issues in that area. And it would be a lot of one-on-one sessions, coaching sessions as a team, finally to the point where we got through a lot of issues in that area. And some people ended up staying, some people ended up growing, but it was a lot of coaching on this is what you do next for that team.
Oh, good. And then you mentioned this too were there examples of a new hire or somebody in the organization that was really struggling and not given this tool would probably have left or gotten fired, that because of the tool has really grown and become a really engaged teammate? Were there some examples of that?
Yep.
I think, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
I would say I could see that in our quality team.
Yeah.
I do think there was growth opportunity there for sure.
And we moved a couple of folks who the manager was struggling with the disengagement, and by putting him in another organization with a different kind of mission or set of challenges, the engagement naturally happened with a lot less resistance. And we got where the movement between the APUs, which was kind of not a good thing in our culture, became a positive thing. And we've continued to, through the fifth metric scorecard, identify not just our disengaged folks, but the really engaged folks. And then there's a willingness to move those engaged people to areas where maybe we need additional help. I'm thinking most recently it wasn't a give up, but it was a movement of Basti, for instance, where Basti's an outstanding industrial engineer. She was working in one of our APUs. We need more horsepower in this new stand-up facility for the submarine, and Basti's now been moved there, where in the past I doubt that would have ever happened.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
So now that you're what, a year, 18 months into the program. From a metrics point of view, where do you, have you actually been able to see an increase in your workforce productivity, your overall labor cost, and the overall attrition numbers? Have they started to come down?
Joanne can speak to the attrition and the actual employee piece. From a business standpoint, we are seeing the productivity improvement. We measure that in our company, production sales divided by labor dollars. And so we call that a MOD ratio, French term, and that ratio continues to improve. More sales per production hour, employee hour. And as Joe and you talked, we have some real demand that our one facility here in Hopkinton is still, we're constrained a bit by our suppliers, but we know we have the capacity with the staff we have to ramp up once we have more parts available from our suppliers. Joanne, you want to talk about turnover and
yeah, so I would say our turnover is definitely improved.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the growth, the career growth for individuals. Through this, a lot of the things we talked about was different training opportunities that were out there. We now started an apprenticeship program because we saw a connection between what we could do to bring in machinists because we needed that. So we have people going to school more on their own, as well as more training internally. So I think the opportunities, people now see career growth more than they did before, and the desire to stay. So I think those are good offshoots.
The other is that we've seen a lot is when Bob, you mentioned it, that you really focus on the good people. I know you've implemented that. Who are our future leaders?
yes.
I think there's been some examples where this is identified, like the diamonds in the rough, and then now have moved into leadership roles. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have I would say a fairly now organized approach to succession planning and mentoring, developing people that we see and that we see in them a potential and they have aspirations for management or professional progression. One of our challenges is to overcome the notion that some of our folks have that unless I'm a manager, I can't make a good living. So we've started to look at progression very seriously on the professional side as well as on the managerial side, and tried to make sure through our development plans we're identifying people who have aspiration and their aspirations are aligned with what the potential we see in them. We have, as I say, our most recent example is this industrial engineer, outstanding individual, Basti, and no matter where we put her, she just shines, and when the rest of the organization sees a move like that, as Joanne said, it's an easy thing to start gaining momentum with.
One of the other areas that we see is kind of endemic across a lot of the employers is always a challenge of absenteeism. And I know that you guys went through a similar experience.
Yep.
It's not so much the people are leaving, but absenteeism is a big, anchor in the way of productivity. As the implementation of the leaders having alignment sessions with the lead that talk about the importance of coming to work every day, have you seen an improvement in that aspect as well?
Yes, our absenteeism has definitely improved. When we started this, there was still a lot of COVID effects back then, but I do think that they're working together better. People are working. People know they need to be here. They know they're important to the business. Leaders know how to coach their people, if there are issues on attendance and absenteeism. So all of those things, I think, are good points that came out of what they learned in the leadership training. is how to work together with your people, how to speak, how to talk, how to, coach one-on-one and always have that touch point with them once a week, once a day, or how often. Those things help people feeling engaged and wanting to be here.
It's at the same time with Joanne's input, we are going through a phase right now where we're kind of resetting the expectations. And thankfully, our managers are at a different level of skill to help establish those expectations. And I'll say, appropriately bring those new levels of expectation into our reality. Because it is becoming more and more competitive. So while we try to increase the time our people spend in what we call value-added activity, get rid of the non-value-added, we need people here more and more and more. And when they're here, they have to be more and more effective. So having managers who can set expectations, follow through in a constructive way, again, that becomes a very positive momentum building we find in the organization.
It was very, I have to just say this, it was really exciting for me to see I walked in one of our managers' meetings, and they were meeting with a new employee that just started that day. And she was in a conference room and she was going over with this person, these are my expectations. And I stepped away and went, oh my God, nobody's done that. I didn't ever expect to hear that. That was something they learned. And they said during the training, this is what you should do. Start with your expectations so that it's clear. And it was happening, and it was happening on their own without anybody telling them to do it. It was just they listened to what we taught them, and now they're going out and they're doing it and they're running that way, which is good.
Most definitely, yeah.
It's powerful. Just the last question or kind of a discussion point on this area. Because we've seen this across multiple that implemented the Fit Metric Scorecard tool like you have. Have you seen the ability of your leaders, just generally speaking, to trust each other? Bob, you mentioned this earlier. And when they trust each other, that ability to solve all kind of problems has improved just the overall people are better at what they do. They're not afraid to ask for help. And we're doing better problem solving across the enterprise. One of the CEOs said in the call because of the program, we're just a much better team. And we have more fun doing it in the past. Are you starting to experience some of that as well?
My observation, yes, I mean, we're starting to get collaboration between functions. They're my resources. You can't have them, even though maybe they're available. And by making them available, there's personal growth included. It's the idea that we're stealing from each other is kind of gone. We're going to win together, and the best people where they're needed is the way we win. So I think we're on that journey where we clearly from a year ago, like Joanne said, you could walk in and see sessions, including the Fit Metric Scorecard, where there's a collaboration and a willingness to share people and talk about people, their strengths and what their needs are. That's all very positive. And it ultimately comes down to when you do that, is there trust that it's for the right reasons, right? Not because somebody's at the expense of somebody. It's how does a team win is really the trust factor we're working hard to build. Joanne, you can add your commentary as well to this.
I'd agree with that. And I would say it's even beyond the leaders. It's the people, and the teams working together as well.
Mm-hmm.
In their opportunity. I know we didn't talk about this tool, but I just want to mention it. We didn't do the RJP, the realistic job preview, to the very end because we were doing other training and bringing our people up to speed. And when we finally filmed that, I was never so touched, because what I did is we just tapped different people in the organization and we said, can we film you? We just want you to talk about what you do here, how you feel about the company. So give a realistic preview to someone who might want to work here. And that was it. We didn't coach them more than that. And the video that they made and the words that they said was very touching and moving, and it's very motivating. After I watched it, I was like, wow, I want to work there. I mean, they did this on their own without us telling them what to say. So
You took my next question out of my mouth, which is, once you stabilized your team on the retention side, now you've kind of moved to the back end or the front end, which is the recruiting with the RJP. So is that the next tool you want to fully implement?
Yeah,
yes,
that's in fact what's happening right now. We've got our company is 3 years young in digital marketing. So the RJP, we have the RJP content. We use it for recruiting. We use it for retention. We're probably not more than 3 months away from having to create a new version of the RJP as we start recruiting for the new high security area. And it starts out employees don't want to do it, and then when they see their other peers do it, then they want to do it. It just builds positive morale.
I always love the RJP because it's more about the process is more powerful than the product often.
Agree.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you as you move forward now, when you look at your growth in terms of headcount over the next 3 years, back to the strategy question, Bob,
Mm-hmm.
what is your growth pattern, or how many people do you think you need to add moving forward in order to accomplish the goals you have?
Yeah, ballpark numbers, we want to double the sales, and we don't expect to double the staffing because we are getting efficiencies through better management of our people and expectations, through the lean initiatives that we do. So I would predict that our staffing level on the hourly shop floor is probably going to go up about 50% from where it is right now, not 100%. That's
So you're doubling your revenue at a 50% growth. That's a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, look, it's the only way to win in business today. Most of you all know that if you're in the manufacturing world, you've got to be showing that kind of efficiency gain.
Outstanding. The next question really has to do with your participation in the program. Have you seen benefit with the networking events and getting to know people in your network and within your flag, and just kind of describe how those relationships have built over time and the benefits or the benefits or the not benefits of that aspect of the program?
Yeah, this is on my agenda to get more out of than we have the first 2 years, because we just, we have a tendency, we're very deliberate about our priorities. So, but I can tell you already in 2024, through the network, we have discovered companies with technologies that are very complementary to what we're doing. And by bringing those company capabilities with ours, patents are developing for new products in areas as sophisticated as the next generation of submarines. So I would say the networking, although we're just scratching the surface, we're having wins of that significance already.
Joanne, what's your thought there?
Absolutely. So the people that I've met within the network are everything from training providers to people with funds to help us between getting either equipment or training dollars, or people, what pipelines they use. So we've had a lot of sharing, I would say. The monthly meetings that are held are very helpful. Some of the things you may think, how do I go about doing this? They're very open to share their best practices or how would they go about doing things. So I think that's been very beneficial.
Okay.
Joe, it's very recent, but we actually have been recommended by a network participant to solve a problem that another network company that our competitor doesn't seem to be very good at. So, you know, there's new business coming out of the network in addition to technology partnerships, just to add. And I almost forgot that that's within the last week we've been called by someone in the network saying, can you please come help us? We heard you could do that, from another network member.
That's amazing. We're starting to see that all over the place.
Yeah.
That's when we're starting to build trust with each other too.
Right, exactly.
Last question before we sign off, Bob and Joanne. Has internally within Hutchinson, I know this is a big organization, international organization. Has this participation program gotten some visibility within the Hutchinson family itself?
I'll talk from the RJP certainly got visibility. I'll confess I got my hand slapped a little bit because our corporation wants to review everything and anything that goes out digitally. And when we did share that video, we got instant recognition for how good it was, how impressive our employees. In fact, Joanne had to spend a little time convincing folks in Hutchinson, no, those weren't scripted testimonials. Those were our employees talking about what it is to work at our company. So, you know, I think, yeah, we're getting some notoriety with that. We're also getting some notoriety with our development planning and mentoring activity, that I think is, from the company's perspective, pretty much on the front edge of what's happening in Hutchinson. Joanne, anything you would add?
I don't know if I saw mouths moving, but no
Yeah.
words. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. But yes, I would agree with exactly what you said. They really like the RJP. In fact, you know, from headquarters said, we got to find a way to use that because that was good. So they wanted to do something on their corporate site with what we filmed, which was great. And I think also, you know, we have sister plants that want to know what we're doing and how we're doing it. Some of them are in defense and industry, some of them are not. But a lot of the tools that we put in practice here are helpful to them as well. So it's something that we share if we can and where we can.
That's outstanding. Then just a product of our prep meeting yesterday. I know, Bob, you were very interested in the team coming back and just doing a refresher training on the Leader New Hire Retention Training Fit-Metry Scorecard, and also provide some coaching to the Ithaca plan, et cetera. You want to comment on that? Kind of a last thought?
Yeah, I think the coaching really was outstanding. And I, you know, Ryan and Bo, they're great coaches. They're the kind of coaches that folks who don't know them, within 1 or 2 sessions, they're trusting and they're talking about things they wouldn't normally talk about with perhaps their current bosses. So I call it a touch-up, right? It's been about a year. All of our supervisors are still here, that went through the original coaching. One is new that didn't get a chance to go through it. So having those coaches come back and re-engage long enough to see, now that you've practiced this for a year, what questions, how is it working, would be very good. And we're, you know, we are so positive about the scorecard and the setting expectations part that we now think that's a good tool, set of tools to take to our other facility.
Easy. Well, Bob, you and Joanne certainly, you know, have been a leader of the pack for the last 2 years, and I look forward to continuing the partnership, because I think our core outcome metric, you're an example, I think, of you've gone a long way to stabilize your team by reliable pipelines. I think you'd agree that Hutchinson and Hopkinton is running a better business today than it was 2 years ago.
Certainly.
And you're providing more capacity to the Navy and to American manufacturing.
Yep. Yeah, I really like, you know, this, Joe, the idea of how do we utilize that increasing capacity how do we let the Navy and the tier one suppliers to the Navy know that we can be more than we are already? In other words, grow the business even further is a really positive next thing to add to the agenda of TMG, I think.
Absolutely. Hey, well, thanks, Bob and Joanne. Look forward to seeing you soon, and really appreciate your testimonial this month.
You're very welcome. Thank you. It's good to be part of the organization. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much for all your help.
Yes.
You're quite welcome. Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you.
Our team, our whole team, yeah. So for everybody, what we want to do is we want to review our latest program preview for the Talent Pipeline program. I've asked Dana to put the link to the video in the chat box. And it's designed to be a short 5-minute review of the program. And we'd encourage you, because we're really trying to recruit more companies to come in the program. That gives you a tool that I think tells the story. So it was a realistic job preview for the program. So I'll show you that, and then we'll sign off for this month, and we'll see you next.
The threats to our nation are growing, and the world around us is changing. Our competitors are building stronger forces to challenge us. We must move quickly and stay ahead by creating new advantages in how we fight. Tomorrow's battlefield will be incredibly challenging and complex. We will put more players on the field, platforms that are ready with the right capabilities, weapons, sustainment, and people with the right skills, tools, and training. There is a special bond between our warriors and American manufacturing. While our warfighters win our battles, American manufacturing will win the wars and drive deterrence. So our potential enemies know that today is not the day they want to pick a fight with the most powerful nation on earth. The best companies know that getting their people processes right is driving their business performance every day. When they own their people challenge, amazing things happen. They drive down their labor costs, increase productivity, and run a better business and provide more capacity for the Navy to meet its ever-increasing demand. The U.S. Navy Talent Pipeline program is a central part of this solution set. It's a structured approach that helps small and medium-sized defense industrial-based manufacturers recapitalize their workforce through recruiting, hiring, training, and retaining skilled workforce members with critical skills as productive and engaged employees. They hire for fit, train for skill, and retain for life.
PCC was involved with the Talent Pipeline program from the very beginning, and we saw very early on how important this could be for suppliers like ourselves in the challenges that we faced in workforce development and rising to meet the demand that the Navy faces today. For us, one of the big benefits of this program has taken a holistic approach to hiring and recruiting. If you're a supplier to the maritime industrial base today and you're not participating in the program, you're really missing out on a great opportunity. These programs that are being established are making a difference. The stronger we are together collectively as an industrial base, the better off we're going to be to overcome these challenges that we're facing as a country.
When we first got involved in the program, it was actually perfect timing for us because when we looked at our workforce, and we saw a pretty big bubble of employees that were within 5 to 10 to 12 years of retirement. What we weren't seeing was the number of qualified candidates coming out of tech schools and VOTech programs. We knew we had to do something different than we were doing before. One of the first things we did, we got to sit through a talent acquisition and retention session. What that program did for us was really drilling into us that hiring is not an HR problem. Hiring is everyone's job. And quite frankly, recruiting and retention went from being a pretty big problem to, I think, a competitive advantage.
First, the tools that are offered by the Talent Pipeline program have been
very, very useful to us. Whether it's recruiting, hiring, onboarding our people, it's been fabulous. We've utilized that a lot. Throughout the 3 years we've been involved with TPP, we've onboarded about 34 people, and our retention rate of those people has been just about 90%. So big improvement from where we were prior to TPP, and we're excited about that and the benefits that it's given us.
So I think one of the reasons that this program is so important is that we all want to be a part of something. We all want to know that what we're doing makes a difference. And so we know that our products are what helps enable applications in critical defense applications. It just makes you feel better about what you're doing.
But what the Talent Pipeline program has done has brought us all together so that we are all working together for this common cause, which is to make sure that we have a strong defense industrial base, because without that industrial base, we wouldn't be able to win the fight.
Well, as a United States Marine Corps veteran, I'm very proud of what I do here. I love what I do. We power America, we power the naval fleet, and it's really rewarding work.
Since 2021, the Talent Pipeline program has helped defense industrial base manufacturers across America build engaged and productive teams that are creating the capacity needed to accelerate getting more players on the field for our U.S. Navy. More ships, more submarines, more aircraft, more munitions, more of everything they need to have an overwhelming advantage. More of everything they need to never be in a fair fight. What began in the Philadelphia region has grown to Pittsburgh, Hampton Roads, Boston, Long Island, Southern California, and now in a national rollout where we can help any employer across the entire United States. Join the fight. Become a partner in the U.S. Navy Talent Pipeline program today and help build the defense industrial base workforce of tomorrow.
One team, one fight.
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 We're on a mission. One relationship, one employer, one job, one lifelong, productive, engaged teammate at a time.
So everybody have a great rest of the day, and look forward to next month on the May 20th. So thank you very much for everybody for attending, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks,
you.
Joanne.
Yep, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You good?
Yes, sir. We're good. We have that other call, but we also have a call.
Just gonna jump on this first one for a few minutes. That's not for.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, don't forget about the two.